Check, check. Check, check, check. Greetings, greetings. Greetings, greetings, everyone. Welcome to Soul Power Tennis. Good evening. Happy autumn. Happy October. How's everybody feeling? Thank you for joining the broadcast. I am Acknowledgements, and please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, click the notification bell, and yeah, be active, interact with me so I can get to know you. So we introed by playing some introduction music that is going to be the newer music for the broadcast, and it's music made by a special human being who goes by the name DJ Zesto Q and Acknowledgements. We made that music together, and wishfully you enjoy it. And so that was the intro. Now we got some background music going on. This is all world premiere. World premiere. And yeah, we got some other cool things in store for you. And that is that. And let me check the chat. Yeah, we've reached the middle of October, where the cold season is set to begin. Yeah. So give me just a moment. I'm gonna play some more music to warm you up while we get ready for a treat. Even though it's not something directly to eat, but you shall enjoy, and enjoy you shall. All right. So let's get into it. Now, welcome to Soul Power Tennis. What is Soul Power Tennis? Well, for one, this is only the third or fourth broadcast that I've made pertaining to tennis directly. And so we have a long way to go. We're building it up. We're rebuilding the channel and getting the brand work identified and all of that stuff. This is one of two channels that I have. Once again, my name is Acknowledgements, and this is Soul Power Tennis. My other channel is called The Compliment King. And there we find creative ways to acknowledge people for doing great work in the world. So that's that channel. Excuse me. That channel has way more videos and content at the present moment. And this is more my personal page that I'm tailor making for tennis. And if you ask me what is it, here we acknowledge the continuous contributions of foundational Black Americans to the sport while putting or bringing a different spin to the game. So in general, whatever it is I present here on this broadcast, on this platform, it's going to have a different spin to it. Now, if you're familiar with tennis, you know it's all about, well, it's not all about, but much of the sport, much of the game playing itself has to do with the spin that you put on the ball, created by the racket. So we're going to give it a different spin, whatever it is I present. So that's the macro of it all. The micro of it is that we're going to focus in on foundational Black Americans and their contribution to the sport. Now, when I say foundational Black Americans, you can hear that as if I'm saying African Americans. It's just a key distinction. Just a moment. There we go. If you are curious as to what I'm doing, I'm communicating with a special person that you will soon know. So, you know, um, we're building it as we're moving it. So that's that. Yeah, it's a key distinction to denote a people. And so foundational Black Americans, those who've been here for centuries, who are Black. Think of it like that. We'll give the brief explanation at this time. So that's what Soul Power Tennis is. And foundational Black Americans have that soul. We got that soul power. Salute to James Brown and all of the soul and the funk pioneers, and to my ancestors for having me here. Boom. Now, what is this particular episode about? Well, it's about a few things. Two things in particular. One, the great tennis legend, Arthur Ashe. That's number one. Number two, we're going to get into tennis stories. Mix them with a little bit of tennis history and tennis perspective. All that's going to be wrapped, all in one. And so that is that. And yeah, it is definitely going to be interesting. This is my first time interviewing someone on this particular broadcast. So be patient with me as we grow, as we get to know each other and get familiar, and as we build this thing together. This is not a one-person show. As you can see, the comment that I put, let me just go like this. Boom. That's me, and this should be interesting. So with that being said, if you want to, let's get into a little bit of house cleaning. If you want to ask a question, you can simply just put the question in the chat. and everybody can see it. I do have a private chat as well, but most of you all don't have access to that. So don't worry about that. But your question will be in the chat for me to see and to view, and we can take it from there. But that will come later on. In the meantime, what it is we have going on right now is we're going to get into who the man Arthur Ashe was, in case you all are not familiar with him. I'm sure you've heard the name at some point in your entire life. If you live in America and if you've listened or watched enough tennis. Did I get the color of the tennis ball correct with the Soul Power Tennis logo? Not so certain, but I will. We will. So, Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe is, I would say, the most prominent black male tennis player of all time. And I would say that he is the most successful black male tennis player of all time. We can say foundational black American. He is that. He's a Wimbledon champion. He's a US Open champion. He was a tennis great, but he was also an activist for human rights, civil rights, for AIDS awareness. That was his calling card. It wasn't just about the sport. It was also about his contributions to humanity and what role he played in it and what role we play in it. So he also has, because of his work as a human being and as a tennis player, he has the largest tennis stadium on planet Earth. So the largest tennis stadium ever built, that is at the USTA Billie Jean King Center in Queens, New York City, is named after Arthur Ashe. And that goes to the magnitude of this man's work and his contributions to the game and what he had to fight through and deal with and overcome as an athlete, as a black athlete, as a man, and as a person who unfortunately contracted AIDS. Now, unfortunately, this is what eventually took him out, in the sense that that's how he died. And it's very unfortunate. He died prematurely, but his work and his legacy still lives on. And speaking of his legacy, at the UCLA University, UCLA, they have the Arthur Ashe Legacy Center. And they're keeping his legacy alive. Now they have different things that they sell, different clothing, articles with his name on it, his likeness. And they also educate the masses as well. And so I came upon this particular organization while I was at the US Open a month ago in September. And I bought some things and I was super excited to see it. And that's what the actual thumbnail is. So I took that picture. In fact, I took the background picture as well. That's me sitting in my seat looking at the audience, the crowd at the Arthur Ashe Stadium this year, about a month and a half ago. I took that picture. And the thumbnail, I took that picture as well. So that's what's going on. That's a little synopsis of who Arthur Ashe is. And with that, we have the honor of bringing someone up who actually knew the man a little bit. Didn't know him very, very well. Didn't know him a lot, but knew him a little bit. Enough to share something with us, the viewers, the world, the tennis world. Now, this particular person, we're going to call her Miss Elissa. Okay? And she was a former ball girl of Arthur Ashe in the 1970s. That's a long time ago. It's before I was born. But it doesn't matter. We're alive. She's alive. She's here. But it is incredible that you can reach back and attain information, wisdom, experiences from someone who lived in a time before you was even born. And so she was a ball girl in the 1970s for Arthur Ashe. She was also one of the top ranked juniors player as a teenager. She's a long time Cali girl and has tons of tennis stories. And I would like to think that she's a mini library, right? Now, before I bring her on, or bring her up for you all to see and meet her, we met by watching the same tennis streaming broadcast. Not gonna name any names at this time, but we were watching a match on this broadcast and some commentating was going on, and there were tons of questions in the chat, and with hundreds of people, thousands of people. And I saw her name, and somehow she shared that she was a ball girl for Arthur Ashe, and I was like, whoa, wait. I have got to find out who this person is. I reached out to her in the chat. She sent me a direct email, and thus we began the conversation. So that's how we met. And without any further ado, before I bring her up, let's play a little music to transition with, and then we're gonna get right into the interview. Let's go. All right. So with that being said, Miss Elissa, are you there?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Hi there. Yes, we can hear you. Let me just check the sounds real quick, and I think we're good to go.
Okay.
So, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So we're gonna get right into it unless there's anything that you want to share right out the gate.
I do want to say that I don't think I would be considered a top junior player. I was a good player, but not
Okay.
like top junior. But I
Oh,
was
come on.
I was ranked, but I wasn't like a Tracy Austin or anything like that. I was a good solid junior in SoCal. I think that's what I would be considered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll revisit that point.
Sure.
But so tell us a little bit about yourself.
I started playing tennis when I was about 12, which was a little bit late, but I picked it up pretty quickly. And about a year after I started playing, I had the opportunity to be a ball girl for the Pacific Southwest Open, which was held at Poly Pavilion, which wasn't too far from where I lived with my family. And somehow I asked my parents. It was during the school year. I was in school, and they let me ditch the whole week to go. I was 13 at the time. It was 1975, and I took the bus into Westwood every day. And I was a ball girl. Now I had been a ball girl the year before when the tournament was held at the Los Angeles Open. And at that time, the great Jack Kramer, the Jack Kramer rackets, right? Jack Kramer was the tournament director. I don't know who the tournament director was when they moved to Poly Pavilion, when I was a ball girl at Poly Pavilion. But I was a ball girl all week. And Arthur Ashe was the number 1 seed. And he was
in the world.
He was, I don't know if he was, I think he was ranked number 1 in the world at that time. I mean, he was a huge star. Everybody knew him. I mean, he was by far the biggest draw at that tournament. But he was an icon, and he was, you didn't have to play tennis to know who he was. And I had the privilege of being a ball girl on several of his matches that week. And I when we talked the other week, I mentioned.
Okay, so we're gonna get there.
Yes.
Before we get into Arthur Ashe proper, and you being a ball girl for him, can you share like a bit more about like how you specifically like got into playing tennis, and like the first time, like what it was like when you played tennis for the first time?
Oh, sure. Okay, so my parents lived in Beverly Hills. They were not rich, but they wanted me to go to Beverly Hills schools. So they did what they could to live in Beverly Hills. And so they moved into an apartment across the street from Roxbury Park.
Wow.
And Roxbury Park is still there. I've driven by it a couple times in the last couple years. And there was a backboard there. And so pretty much for the first year, when I was like 12, 11, maybe I started when I was 11, 12, something like that. I hit on the backboard for a year, which was great for my game, because if you practice on a backboard, you become very consistent.
Now, when you say backboard, describe what a backboard is to those who aren't familiar with tennis language.
I'm sorry, like a handball court.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go to the backboard, and then eventually I started meeting some people that would hit with me on a real court. I was fairly, athletic for a kid. I could, and I got better. I'm sorry, my dog is barking. Hold on. I'm sorry. I have to feed my dog. I've already fed her, but I have to do it again. I'm so sorry.
No worries. You wanna take a pause for the time being?
I'm just so sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Let's give Elissa
Sorry.
a moment. No, you're good. I'm gonna mute your mic until you're ready. Um, so yeah, for those of you who aren't sure what the backboard is, and think that it's a basketball backboard, that is not the case. It is essentially a standing wall on its own. And yeah, it's like what you see like on the handball courts, or for some courts, you'll see a wall and it's used for handball. And people use it for tennis to just hit the ball up against it, just to practice forehand, backhand, all of that. So that's what that is, and that's what she means
It's
when.
a backboard is wonderful to practice your volleys.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So I played on the backboard for about a year, and then I think that like the next year I went into high school, and
Okay.
I played the first year. I think like 13 years old. I was pretty young, and then I played on the Beverly Hills high school team. I played JV for them the first year, and then sophomore, junior, and senior years I played varsity for them, and I improved a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons I improved so much in that short amount of time, in a year or two, was that I had been a ball girl, and it was basically learning how to play by osmosis. I was
Wow.
up close and personal, right? I was up close. I was 10 feet away on the court with Arthur Ashe and Stan Smith and some of these other great players. You know, I was right there. And doing that for a week, I didn't play any tennis during that week.
Okay.
But when I was done playing, being a ball girl, and I went back playing, I was probably 30% better.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Just by watching, I mean, when somebody like Arthur Ashe, I mean, who obviously was a master of the game. I mean, he was amazing. But it was him and Brian Gottfried and Bob Lutz. I mean, these guys were the top 10, top 20 players at that time.
Wow.
So it was a great experience in that, just watching them play very up close.
Amazing. Now, before we move further on that point, what's the highest level of tennis that you've actually reached on the tour in any way?
Well, I played for Cal State Long Beach, and I played for them for 4 years, and I was 4, 5, or 6 on that team. And then I actually got better as I got older. So when I was in my mid 30s, I was ranked in SoCal women's 5.0 and women's 35s. And then I was ranked like 1 or 2 in SoCal for women's 35s and 5.0. And then in my 40s, I was ranked nationally, I think around 22 in the nation. So, that's where my level was. I would say I was a really good amateur. I was a good player. It wasn't that I wasn't. But whenever I would play against pros or anyone who had played on the tour, unfortunately, they could beat me pretty handily. There's a big difference between the pros and a good amateur.
Well, but when you were a teenager, though, I recall when we spoke prior, you mentioned that the area that you were in, SoCal, Southern California, for those who aren't aware, was like one of the top ranked areas in the entire country. So if you were pretty good there, then
yeah. So SoCal, even at this time, is the toughest area. It's the toughest tennis region in the nation. That probably, and Florida, Northern California also has a lot of good players coming out of there. But yeah, I mean, it was we had more good players, per capita, let's say, than any other region. So no, I was good, and I was ranked as a junior in the 16s in SoCal. I just don't want anybody to think I was like a Tracy Austin, because I certainly wasn't that. But it's funny, I would play in tournaments where she played. And that was like a circus. She was such a big star at that time that even when she was, 14, 15 years old, there would be a crowd of 500 or 1,000 people watching her.
Mm.
Yeah. And she was, I met her a few times, and she's always been very humble and very nice person.
And for those who aren't aware who Tracy Austin is, she is considered one of the, greater American tennis players, going back to the 70s and 80s, primarily, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So, yeah.
She's
She's
about
in that pantheon of American great female tennis players.
She was about a year. She's about a year younger than me. And she was basically, after Chris Everett, she was the American phenom. She was like a latter day Coco Gauff.
That's exactly what I was just about to say as well. Okay, got you.
Very precocious, very good at a very young age. You kind of know that they're going to win Grand Slams and they're going to be a champion. And she was actually, Tracy Austin was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at like 2 years old. She was that. Yeah.
Not two, right? Not actually 2 years old, right?
You can look that up. I've seen the cover, and she's like this little toddler holding a racket, and somehow somebody saw her play and thought she's amazing, and they were right. But Arthur Ashe was also a very good junior player, and he was also a phenom. Like, they knew that he was going to be one of the top players in the world. He had so much talent.
Okay, so getting into Arthur Ashe, could you take us through the process of what it's like to become a ball kid or ball girl first, and then if you can get into as many minute details as you can get into of like what it was like to be the ball girl for him, that would be great.
Okay.
All right, doggy, we got you.
I have fed her 3 times tonight. So, Lucy, stop it, please.
And I have a request to make. Maybe you can fulfill it or not.
No.
It's when I'm looking at your spot in my feed, it has a nice, beautiful green E. However, when I'm looking at it on the live feed that's being shown to YouTube, it's literally like the moon. It's a bright white round ball, which looks cool, but it's not like easy on the eyes. Do you happen to have
it looks like a green E.
What's that?
It's green.
Yeah, for some reason I don't know why it's not showing up like that in the live feed. I can see it in my software, but not on the live feed. Anyway, we'll move forward. Miss Elissa wants to keep her privacy, you all, so we're going to respect that. But hopefully the big white ball that looks like the moon. I'm not talking to the moon, you all. I'm talking to Miss Elissa, who is an Arthur Ashe ball girl. So just to let you all know. So she's taking some time out again to feed her doggy that is eaten 4 or 5 times. But apparently, maybe what's the dog's name again? When you get a chance, let us know what the dog's name. Maybe I'll once I shout out the dog's name on air, that'd be fine.
She's not usually this unruly, but she must know that I'm doing a podcast. I put her in one of the bedrooms. I fed her 3 times tonight. She's fine.
Yes.
Her was Lucy. She's just,
yes.
Yeah,
So someone in the chat mentioned that when we were talking about yourself and Tracy Austin and Chrissy Everett, they mentioned Billie Jean King, and Billie Jean King was a few years before Chris Everett and Tracy, right? She was more like 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah, actually, I think Billie Jean King started playing in the late 50s.
Wow. Yeah.
But she did have a lapse, or not a lapse, but she did play against Chris Everett when Chris Everett was young. I don't think she ever played against Tracy Austin. because
I don't think so.
that was in the 80s,
Yeah,
basically. And I think Billie Jean had retired already.
yeah, yeah. So Billie Jean King is a tennis legend, to the extent that the U.S. Open. So there's and I'm sharing this for those who may not be aware. So there's 4 Grand Slams. The one that is American based is the United States Tennis Championships, the U.S. Open, and the entire sports complex, sports center, is named after Billie Jean, and it's called the Billie Jean King USTA Tennis Center. And the premier show court and stadium at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center is the Arthur Ashe Stadium, which is the largest tennis stadium. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the largest tennis stadium on planet Earth, right? And it's the epicenter of things. So these two people had a great relationship. They knew each other. Had their differences, but they also had some great conversations and a good friendship at some point. So with that being said, yeah, so the doggy is fed. Now we're going to get back into what the process was like to becoming a ball girl, and then what it was like to specifically be the ball girl for Arthur Ashe.
Okay. Well, at that time, I was taking lessons, tennis lessons, from a gentleman by the name of Jimmy McDaniel.
Ooh.
And Jimmy McDaniel was he was just a wonderful person. He was a very gifted and wonderful tennis player, but he was also just a great human being. And he was my tennis coach, and he was much older. He was older at that time. He was in his mid 60s when he was teaching me, and he taught me at a place called the Tennis Place, which was on 3rd Street in Los Angeles. It was run by another old pro named Carl Earn, who was quite a character. He was a really nice guy. He was almost he was like a comedian, and he ran the place. Very, very sweet man. And I was taking lessons from Jimmy. Now, Jimmy had not been able to play in the Grand Slams because he was African American. And when he was younger, we're talking, this is the 1930s, let's say, 30s or 40s, he was not allowed to play because there was that segregation, and they didn't allow African Americans to play. So he made a living being the hitting partner of Don Budge. And Don Budge was #1 in the world. He was I don't know how many Grand Slams he won, but he won a lot. And in practice, Jimmy used to beat him. So that's how good he was. And that's why Don Budge brought him around the world, paid him. That's what he did for a living. And he was Don Budge's practice partner, hitting partner. And Jimmy McDaniel was just a very gifted player. I mean, I don't know what he was like when he was young. I didn't know him then, but he was amazing even at 66 when I knew him. He was he just kind of glided around the court. A lot of just gifted ability, and he was a fabulous teacher. And he was the one who suggested that maybe I'd be a ball girl, because he knew people. He knew Jack Kramer, and he knew these other old timers. And I don't know who exactly he knew over there, but he was the one that made the call and told me that I should, hey, if you can do it, do it. And he was absolutely right. And then, like I said, when I came back from that week, I had improved, and Jimmy knew what he was doing. I mean, he knew that if I was there among these people, that I would improve. And I was also taking lessons at that time from another great player named Tori Fretz, who actually played on the Philadelphia Freedoms with Billie Jean King in World Team Tennis. And she was a great, fabulous American player. She got to the quarters of Wimbledon, and she was the tennis place at that time had a lot of fabulous teachers. I mean, you have Jimmy McDaniels, you have Carl Earn, who played also at that level, and then you have Tori Fretz, who was also a great professional. So I was in good hands there. I mean, it was I have a lot of fond memories, and that place was torn down in the, I believe, early 80s, I want to say, for Park La Brea in Los Angeles. All the apartments and all of that went up. The tennis place on 3rd Street was torn down.
Okay. Now, just to give the audience a bit more information or a bit more context about the magnitude of who Jimmy McDaniels was, it was said that he was the greatest black player of the pre-war era. I'll say that again: the greatest black or African American, foundational black American player of the pre-war era. Now that's World War II. He was a 4-time American Tennis Association champion. And the Tennis Association was based in Harlem, and it was essentially like the nation's black players that had their own association or organization who played against each other. So it was kind of like, in a way, the Negro Leagues of tennis, I guess you can say. So he won 4. He was the 4-time champion at that. He was 6 foot tall, 6'5".
Yeah,
he was 6'5". So was he that tall when you knew him as well?
6'5". I don't think he was ever 6'5", but he was very tall and lean. I would say about 6'2".
Yeah,
but very slender, very tall and thin, and just moved like a gazelle. I mean, he just glided. He made tennis look very easy when it's not.
So maybe he was the first. He was the predecessor of Roger Federer, maybe. But he
yes, and also Arthur Ashe had that gliding sense about him when he played. Very smooth, making it look very easy. Unlike someone like Jimmy Connors, who I think puts a lot of grit and muscle behind his shots, and not that there's anything wrong with that. Jimmy Connors was amazing, but different approach to the game.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, in reference to Mr. McDaniels, being 6'5", when you get older, you shrink some inches. So that's one thing. And then 2, in sports, they always try to make you a little bit taller. But yeah, I mean, he was like 66, so maybe he shrunk a little bit. He was from
Yeah, I still, even if he shrank, I still don't buy the 6'5". No way.
Okay. And pardon me, I forget that I'm, speaking to a former semi-pro athlete, so I'm gonna respect what it is you say. So he was also he was from LA, raised in LA, and turns out that he actually played in the Negro baseball leagues. Did you know that?
I had no idea about that. That's really fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah, so he played in the Negro leagues, and at some point he became a Pullman car porter. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, do your research of what a porter is on a train, a Pullman car porter. So his story, his background is very, very interesting. It's a classic story of the foundational Black American, and what he went through and what we had to go through, but he persevered, he made it through, and he it says that he unofficially broke the tennis color barrier in 1940s in playing that match against Don Budge. Now, Don Budge had won the Grand Slam 2 years prior, which means that I think he was the first or second man ever to win all 4 Grand Slams concurrently. So he had done that 2 years prior, and then he's playing against Jimmy McDaniels, and like you said, he didn't win that match. Well, Jimmy McDaniels didn't win that match against Don Budge, but like you said, in practice, you've known for Mr. McDaniels to beat Don Budge, correct?
Oh, absolutely. He was at that level. He yeah, I mean, he would have been, I mean, who knows what he would have been ranked if they'd allowed him to play, but I mean, certainly I would say top 5 in the world at
Wow.
the very least. He was at that caliber. And that's why Don Budge had him travel with him, because he
Mm,
always knew that he could be playing somebody who was as good or even better than him, right? And then you're going to improve. But I know that they were good friends, and I know that they had a good relationship. I mean, at least that's what I heard. Jimmy was aside from all the talent and the interesting life, he was just a really wonderfully sweet man, and I just only have fond memories of him. He was a great,
beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful. Now he was not only 6'5" or 6'4" or 6'3" or 6'2", but he was also a lefty, which is very, very interesting because even in the game today, you don't see a lot of tall players. You see a lot of tall players or taller players, but the majority of them are right-hand players. So it's like seeing a left-handed tall player back then or even now is truly something to behold. And he was left-handed, so he was a bit different. And it's no surprise that he went to an arts high school, actually. So that's very, very interesting. And
I can envision him hitting the ball right now, because I mean, I used to watch him play all the time because it was educational,
mhm.
just to watch him play even when he was, older.
Yeah. So that's Mr. McDaniels. And in terms of Mr. Ashe, how many times would you say that you were his ball girl?
I would think twice during the week.
Okay. And
And he,
this was
you
for
know,
what tournament?
this was the Pacific Southwest 1975. I was
Wow.
13 years old.
Wow.
And every, there's kind of like the man, the myth, the legend, right?
Hmm.
And people write about him, about how classy he was and what a gentleman he was. And that's all I saw. Everything they write about him, that's how he was in real life. He was very soft spoken. He was very kind to the ball boys and ball girls. He was just very humble. I would say the opposite of boisterous, right? Just very understated. Let his racket do the talking. And then his game was like that too, just kind of gliding, a quiet sort of game that dismantled almost everybody that he played against.
Hmm. Hmm. And what was it like for you as you saw his career move onward, and then him move into being more of an activist and speaking out and things of that sort? Like, what was that like?
Well, I mean, I have to preface everything that I say about Arthur Ashe with me saying that I'm, I would consider myself a super fan of his. I think that he is not only a tennis icon, but an American icon, American
Mm,
hero. Um, I would put him in the caliber of Jackie Robinson
wow.
with baseball. Um, you mentioned, his early death from AIDS, just was tragic because he could still be alive today,
Yeah.
right? And I think that the Arthur Ashe legacy that you mentioned is so cool. I know about that, and it's a very great foundation where they teach students at UCLA about Arthur Ashe, and I think it's very important because he was a very important American, not just an important tennis player. And he was one of those special people that don't come around that often, where you have this combination of amazing athleticism, right?
Hmm.
And then this kind heart that wants to help people, right? Even
Hmm.
after he's gone. And then he was super handsome. So he had this combo that not too many people are blessed to have.
So he had beauty, bronze, and brains.
Yes, correct. I would agree with that.
Triple threat. Wow.
Yeah.
Salute to Mr. Ash. So, thank you for sharing, what you shared about him. And if anything else, comes up, please feel free to, interject and share that as well.
I, I will
And
I will
good.
mention one thing. I came across a photo, and I'm sure you guys can find it on the internet, but it's a photo of him and Eli Nastasi. And
Mm,
Eli Nastasi was one of the top players during the 70s. He was very good friends with Jimmy Connors. And Eli Nastasi was um, he had a lot of energy behind his matches, and he would, I would say, talk a lot. Let's just put it that way. And there's a photograph of them. I guess they're in some sort of a tournament match, and they're crossing. They're changing ends, right?
mhm.
And Eli Nastasi is yelling, right? You can see that he's talking loudly and energetic, and Arthur Ashe is passing him pretty much with his eyes closed in a stoic sort of trance to try to like tune Eli Nastasi out.
Mhm.
And I saw that photo, and I thought that kind of represents the the um their personalities. Now you're seeing a photo of the two of them, but that's not the photo that I saw.
That's not the
Um,
photo.
no, I no, I
Okay.
don't think so. It doesn't. Well, maybe no, it does. There was another one where I think it was a little more heated, maybe,
Okay.
but or maybe that is the
Yeah,
photo.
it seems like in this particular photo, they're let me try to enlarge it. Um, can you see it like blown up? It seems like, Illy seems to be pretty revved up, and like Arthur is trying to like focus and just walk past him. But
Yes, yes.
yeah.
And I think that from what I could tell, I mean, just being on the court with him, he just seemed like a really a peacemaker.
Okay.
He wasn't going to. I mean, he might stand up for what he thought was right, and he did with his activism, um, but he definitely wasn't a fighter like that.
He wasn't a physical fighter on,
No,
well,
no,
he
no.
wasn't somebody to come to fisticuffs on the court.
I
But he
don't
was
know.
a fighter.
I
He was
don't
a
think
fighter in
so.
the sense that he would fight to win that match, and a fighter in
Yeah,
life.
yeah. I think
Gotcha.
his fighting spirit was in his heart,
Okay.
not in his not in his hands or you know what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Awesome. Let me just take that down. Um, Cool. So that's thank you for sharing, and thank you
Mhm,
for edifying,
mhm,
and giving the world, giving the viewers, a more personal side of who this man was, and
mhm.
somebody who actually met him in the flesh, may have exchanged some words, and this is like such a sacred,
he
beautiful
asked
moment.
he asked me for some tennis balls, and I gave him the tennis balls.
Uh-huh.
That's what a ball girl does. And that's what I did.
Yeah. So you shall forever be blessed because of that. So thank you so very, very much. And this is such an honor to be speaking with you, because this is like a time capsule connect, because here is someone, like you said, somebody who is an American hero, a sports hero, a Black American hero, and here I am now, and this is 2022, and we're able to connect the worlds and the times by a medium, and that would be you. So just know that any sharing that you're doing of his work, his contributions, and any of these great players, Jimmy McDaniels, Don Butch, all of them, is very, very much needed and appreciated, because it's adding to the tennis history, herstory, our story is adding to the legacy and the greatness of this particular sport. Because we hear all the time, players' recollection of what it was like, with them growing up and playing, and we hear commentators talking about it, but we don't hear it from the aspect of like maybe the ordinary fan, let alone a ball girl, ball boy, or a chair umpire. So it's really like a very, very unique insight that we're getting by speaking with you. So I'm just very, very thankful, to have you on the broadcast and to have shared all of what you shared. So thank you once again.
I'll give you another tip, not a tip, but something that happened during that tournament in 1975.
Mhm.
So Jimmy Connors had,
Yeah, let's get into all the other general tennis stories. Let's go.
Jimmy Connors had won the it was called the not South Pacific Open in 74 and in 73. But he didn't enter the 1975 tournament, which Arthur Ashe did win.
Mhm.
And Jimmy Connors came to the tournament. So even though he wasn't entered, he came and sat in the stands, and he was like a rock star, right? I mean, I was a ball kid. I was like, holy crap, it's Jimmy Connors, right? And he came in, I think, with a little entourage. And he, like a lot of the players, went over to him and was like, "Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?" And he was signing autographs, and he
Jimmy boy
was watching the matches, which I thought was kind of peculiar because he wasn't entered, but I guess he was, watching his competition. He's watching, Roscoe Tanner and all these other players that he had to face. And I guess making mental notes of what they were doing. But I thought that was an interesting thing that happened during that tournament.
Okay. Now, when we initially spoke, you had a lot of tennis stories to share.
I do.
Now I can run down the list, or
Yes.
if any of them come to mind right now. I know it was the longer we spoke, the more that was coming up for you in terms of
Yeah.
memories and all of what was coming. So I'll let you have the floor to share whatever it is you want to share.
Well, I was playing tennis in Southern California in the 70s. So
Did it ever rain there? Because I heard of a song that it never rains in
no,
Southern
it
California.
rains. In fact, one of the worst rainstorms I'd ever been in, it was in Southern California. I was like, how old was I? I think I was like 14 or 15. My
Okay.
dad was driving, and the rain was coming down so hard.
Hmm.
This is a true story, that he had to stick his head out the window to
Whoa.
see, and then he had to pull over. And it was like buckets of water being dumped on our windshield. Neither one of us could see. And he had to pull over, and we had to park for like 10 or 15 minutes until this rainstorm. I mean, the windshield wipers were not doing anything. So
Gotcha.
anyway, yes, it does rain. And that was in Beverly Hills in like
Okay.
76, 77.
Okay.
So it does rain in Southern California. So let's go back for a minute to,
And you went to Beverly Hills High School, right?
I went to Beverly Hills High School. I played on their team for 4 years,
Awesome. Okay.
which that's a whole nother podcast.
Got you.
Going to Beverly Hills High School was a very interesting thing. But so I mentioned the tennis place with Carl Earn, and
Okay.
I played tennis a lot there. I would take the bus and I would go over there and practice. And the tennis place would actually farm me out as a hitting partner. So
Now, what does farm you out mean?
it means that if somebody came to the tennis place and didn't have a hitting partner, they would hire me. So so they would charge, I believe, $20, and then I would get 10 of that. And in the 70s, for a 14-year-old kid, that was good money. So so if I wasn't practicing, I'd be there maybe from, I don't know, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day. I mean, I practically lived there, and I couldn't be on the court every single moment of that time. So, I'd stop and I'd have dinner, and then, somebody would come and say, they'd say, "Hey, you want to be a hitting partner?" So I'd be like, "Yeah, I want to make $10." So, sometimes there'd be celebrities there, and I would hit with them. And this one time, I hit with the very famous model Twiggy.
Mm,
She was one of the she was probably the biggest model in the 1960s. She was
mm.
British and very pretty, very slim, and she paid the $20, and I was her hitting partner. So I hit with her for about an hour, and she was, I don't know what level she was, but kind of a beginner, right? And so after about an hour, I said, "Oh, my time's up. Thank you. And if you want to hit with me again, ask for me." And she says, "Well, I don't think I should have to pay for you." And she said, "You and I are the same level." And I said, "No, no, we're not." And because I was at that time, I might have been 15 at this time. I was a good high school player. And so I said, "No, no, we're not the same level." And she said, "I just saw you play. I know, that you and I are the same level." And I said, "No." I said, "Let's go back on the court and I'll show you how I really play." And
Wow.
so she reluctantly went back on the court with me. And then I hit every single ball. I hit a winner.
Wow.
And her jaw kind of dropped. And I said, "This is how I really play. And this is why the tennis place has me as a hitting partner, because I can bring my game." And I didn't mean to be mean, but I can bring it down to give her a good match, to give her a good practice. So she was very nice. And obviously, for her to she didn't understand. She wasn't really a tennis player at that time, and she saw me hitting at her level, but I had kind of dumbed my game down so she would get a good practice. But she was very understanding and very nice about it. But that's kind of a funny story. Um, then there was another time where I was
Now, why
walk-
was her name Twiggy? Was it because she was very slim, or she was
yes,
like a twig?
yes, she was probably one of the thinnest models in the 60s.
Gotcha.
She was she was like a Bella Hadid, or I mean, she was a big model in the 60s.
Okay.
And I remember her being very famous when I was a small child, when I was like 6 or 7 years old in the 60s.
Okay.
Mhm. And then speaking of models, there was one time where I was at Roxbury Park walking my dog. I had dogs back then too. And I was walking my dog, and I would walk my dogs by the tennis courts. And I peeked in, and I was watching this doubles match, and there were two very famous people playing at Roxbury Park. It was Cheryl Teagues, and she was in the 70s. She took over Twiggy's mantle and became a very famous. She was the biggest, hottest model in the 70s. She was absolutely beautiful. Cheryl Teagues with her then husband, John DeLorean. And John DeLorean was kind of like an Elon Musk. He was a very famous, charismatic entrepreneur. And there they were playing on public courts.
Wow.
At Roxbury Park. And I have to say, Cheryl Teagues looked prettier in person than she did in the magazines. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Cheryl Teagues." But she was a big star at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
There she is. Yeah. That's when she was a little bit older. She looks like she's in her 40s there. But when I saw her, I think she was about 28 and at the height of her her modeling career. She was always on the cover of Sports Illustrated. There she is. Yeah. And
Okay.
so her time. Yeah.
Gotcha.
She was
Okay.
she was the blonde beauty before Christy Brinkley. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And her boyfriend's name was DeLorean, right?
It was her husband.
Her husband, I apologize.
Yeah, John DeLorean. He was I want to say probably 20 years older, 15 to 20 years older, but he was a huge entrepreneur. He created, I think he used to I think he was a big executive. I want to say at Ford, and then
Hmm.
he broke off and created the DeLorean car company. And
Yes,
that
which
the
was very,
DeLorean,
very popular and high end. Yeah.
yes, the DeLorean car was in Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox. They were
Yeah.
driving a DeLorean, to go back into the future. They were driving a DeLorean.
Yes. 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 Okay. Awesome.
So it's just kind of a
Uh,
snapshot of like two very famous icons playing tennis in a very unusual place, because you would see celebrities at Roxbury Park, but not that type of celebrity. They were
mhm.
like global celebrities, Cheryl Tiegs and John DeLorean.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he
He
was
became a lot of beautiful, famous women.
wow, it seems like he passed away in so he was born in Detroit. Well, that's a
Uh-huh.
car making place.
Yes.
It sounds like it was destiny in some
Yes.
way.
Oh,
And
he
then he
worked
passed
at General Motors. I see. Okay.
and then he passed away in New Jersey,
Hmm.
which is my home state. So pretty cool. Pretty
Hmm.
cool. Okay.
He was like a Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk type. Very, very famous businessman.
Got you, got you, got you. And I'm sure his family has a lot of money these days because the DeLorean is like one of the top shelf cars that you could possibly have. So that's
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about their money situation, but it was interesting watching them play tennis, and I was very surprised to see them. Let's put it that way. I've
Got
got a couple other stories you might find interesting. One of them is with the icon Renee Richards,
okay.
who was one of the trailblazers. She's a trans icon, and
Hmm.
she was on the women's pro tour in the 70s. And so there was one weekend where I think I must have been 16 by this time. I think I had driven myself, and I had driven to Fullerton. There was a pretty big tournament in the summer in Fullerton. They probably
Hmm.
had it. And I drove there, and I won my first match at like 10 a.m. And then my second match wasn't till around 4 p.m. So I was relaxing on the grass in the shade under a tree, and I start to hear this, and I don't remember the dog's name, but it was something kind of sweet, and I remember hearing, I think it was Fifi actually, Fifi,
Okay.
Fifi, stop, right?
Uh-huh.
Hearing this, and then all of a sudden I feel a little like lick on my face, and I open up my eyes and I get up. I sit up, and it's this adorable, cute little Yorkie puppy.
Wow.
And I hear, Fifi, don't, Fifi, stop that. Kind of like I was with my dog just a little while ago.
Hmm.
It's Renee Richards.
Was your dog about the same size as her dog?
No, my dog wasn't there.
No, but in terms of like the size of you all's dogs.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I mean,
Okay.
the puppy was little. The puppy was like maybe 10 pounds.
Okay, got you.
My dog weighs like 30 pounds, but she's still on the smaller side. But it was Renee Richards, and Renee Richards was another famous tennis icon of this era.
Wow.
And everybody knew who she was. She was playing on the tour. And she apologized profusely to me that her Yorkie puppy had gotten loose and made a beeline for my face. I mean, the puppy was seriously adorable. And I told Miss Richards, "Yo, no, it's fine, no problem." And it was just a weird encounter. And she was at the tournament because she was teaching one of the girls there. Like, one of the girls was her she taught her lessons, and so they were there together. And so so that was a weird encounter. I mean, she was also, again, very sweet, And what's crazy, and this segues into another story I have. So Renee Richards' doubles partner on the Pro Tour was Stacey Margolin. And Stacey Margolin was kind of another phenom of that era. And she was a couple of years older than me. I want to say 2 or 3 years older. I think I was a sophomore when she was a senior. And so Stacey went to Beverly Hills High School as well. But Stacey was a really phenomenal tennis player. And she was so good that she played number 1 on the boys team. I played 1, 2, or 3 on the girls team, and I was good. But Stacey Margolin was so good that she played number 1 on the boys team, and then she went on to play the pros, having Renee Richards as her doubles partner. And Stacey was top 20 in the world. She was really, really great junior player, but then an equally or better player in the 70s. She was really great. And a very nice girl. I was friends with her and I knew her. But the story that I want to tell you was I believe it was 1978 and I was 16. And I knew Stacey. You know, Stacey, even though she didn't play on the boys team, would come out and cheer the girls tennis team on, and vice versa. We would go out there to cheer the boys on, and especially Stacey, because she was our number 1 player. And so I knew her a little bit. She was a very sweet girl. And so one day, and this was, you know, after school, after I was finishing up a tennis practice with one of my teammates, and we're walking towards the gym at Beverly, and I'm walking, and there's a driveway in front of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here comes Stacey. I believe she made a left into the driveway, so she's in front of me now, and the car is perpendicular to me. And in the passenger seat, this is a true story.
Uh-huh.
John McEnroe.
Oh.
So, yeah, because Stacey dated John McEnroe for several years. Wow. And John is in the passenger seat, and he had just gotten to the semis of Wimbledon.
Wow.
And he was 17. I think John McEnroe was a year or 2 older than me. I mean, he's, you know, so I see John McEnroe. Obviously, everybody knew who he was. He was the biggest thing in tennis at this time. And this was maybe, I'm not kidding you, this might have been a month after he got to the semis and he burst on the scene.
Yeah, his life changed.
And he was such a big star. And so she introduces myself and the other player. I don't know who it was, somebody on my team. And she introduces us to John McEnroe. And we're like, yeah, we know who he is. We know this is John McEnroe. Mm-hmm. And she asks me, is there a court nearby that's secluded that they could go hit on? Uh-huh. And, you know, because it was kind of like, you know, he was really famous at that time. And she didn't want the press, you know, to follow them or whatever. You know, I mean, I don't think she said that, but that's what I thought in my mind, you know. But she did ask me for some sort of private court. Yeah. So I directed her to a court that I thought would be kind of private, and you know, she thanked me, and then they went on their way, right? Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is, she did tell me, she's like, John doesn't want anybody to know he's in town. That's what she said to me, and I understood that because he was such a big star. I mean, he still is a big star, but at that time, you know, when he came on the scene, well.
Johnny Mac.
So when she backed up and they drove away, so you've got to understand, he was in the passenger seat, but he was facing her. He wasn't facing forward. So his back was out the passenger window. That makes any sense, right? So
Uh-huh.
as they drive away, he's still facing her with
Uh-huh.
back out the passenger window, and he's wearing his Davis Cup um outfit, his what do you call this
His
jogging,
warm up, his
his warm up,
jacket, his
right?
sport
And
jacket.
on the back of his, and I can remember the color. The color was a beige. It was
Uh-huh.
beige with white letters, but you
Uh-huh.
could read it. And his name was on his suit, his warm up suit, and
Uh-huh.
it said McEnroe, and it was
Uh-huh.
sticking out of the passenger
You said it
window.
was what?
It was sticking out of the passenger window because he's facing her. He's not facing the windshield. So I turned him to the friend and I, and we were like, okay, he's not going to be recognized when you could see his name out the window. It was very funny. I don't know if he even knew what he had done. Like
There's
that.
no way that he knew that his jacket was hanging out of the car
I
with his
don't.
name.
I'm
Yeah.
going to say he didn't know because he was 17, and he was just sitting in a funny position facing his girlfriend, right? Who
Yeah.
was watching him. And
Unless he was being like, passive aggressive and being like, I don't have to face you all. Look at
no,
my name hanging out the back of the. No.
no, he wasn't that way at all. I mean, he seemed. I just met him for a few seconds, and he seemed pleasant enough and a nice guy. And but I just thought it was really funny because she did tell me, she's like, oh, John doesn't want anybody to know he's in LA, and that's why they were asking for the secluded court. But when they drove away, his name was sticking out the passenger window. So I thought that was a pretty funny, pretty amusing story.
Yeah, if he ever hears this story, wishfully he will. He's gonna be like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You cannot be serious."
Yes. That's what happened, and that's a true story. And I don't think he was aware of it. I truly don't think he was, and she wasn't. So but it was comical. I did want to go back to an interesting story that I had read. And it is on the internet, but not too many people know about it. And it has to do with Arthur Ashe beating Jimmy Connors in the finals of Wimbledon in 1975.
Okay.
And I had read this story and I thought, this is a really interesting story. So apparently, Arthur Ashe's head-to-head with Jimmy Connors was 6-1 in favor of Jimmy Connors. So basically, Jimmy Connors would beat Arthur Ashe all the time. Okay. But on this one occasion in the finals of Wimbledon, he lost to Arthur Ashe. That was his only loss to him, which I thought was fascinating. And what happened was there were Arthur Ashe knew that he would have his hands full with Jimmy Connors in the finals of Wimbledon. But there were other players that apparently, let's say, liked Arthur Ashe more than Jimmy Connors. And they did they consulted with Arthur Ashe, and they did almost like a conference call. And they also went to dinner with him in England before the finals. And they strategized how to beat Jimmy Connors. And he didn't know if he could accomplish it, even as good as Arthur Ashe was, right? And they had this strategy. But, Arthur Ashe changed his game to get the strategy to beat Jimmy Connors. And it worked. And it's an amazing story. It was Charlie Passerell and Dennis Ralston, Marty Reeson, all these top players were in on this, on how to figure out how to beat Jimmy Connors. I also read that Arthur Ashe was watching matches of John Newcomb and Raul Ramirez when they did beat Jimmy Connors. So he was, taking notes and trying to figure out how to beat him. And he went ahead and did this strategy, and he kind of hit junk balls.
Wow.
He kind of
This is
hit
the man
junk
himself
balls,
right here, Arthur Ashe, ladies and gentlemen.
and they told him to hit junk to Jimmy Connors. That was one of the many strategies, and that's how he won. I mean, obviously, he was good enough to do that. Not all players, even
Looping it up,
Hmm?
looping the ball up.
Well, it was what I read was it was a combination. It was junking him, so not very hard. Because
Okay.
liked pace.
Giving him no pace.
Right, no pace, junk, slice, just a lot of junk, so he couldn't get a good rhythm. And then apparently Arthur Ashe had a great serve. I think it was the it was the ad court to Connors' backhand, and he would draw Jimmy Connors in and then lob him over the backhand.
Wow.
And that was his strategy. And he won in 4 sets against Connors. Yes. And the bookies had Connors, it was like, 80-30, or 80-20 or something. That the odds were in favor of Jimmy Connors by far. Because at that point, Connors had never lost to Arthur Ashe. And never lost to him again. So it's a crazy story that they all kind of convened and set out to have a strategy for Arthur Ashe to win, and he did it.
That's amazing. I'm trying to find that exact story. Maybe it's like in the articles that I pulled up and I put on the screen because I want to make sure we're. Now, you said you read that in an article somewhere?
It was actually, I want to say it was on the ATP website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's a great story, but it's not really publicized that much. Okay. But when I read it, I was enthralled. And the 3 guys who went, I took notes because I looked it up again. But the 3 guys that went to dinner with Arthur Ashe were Charlie Passeral, Donald Dell, and Fred McNair.
Wow. Those were before the match or after the match?
Before the match.
Got you. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's natural. Like, yeah, we don't like him. Here's how you beat him.
Right. And then Dennis Ralston, the Davis Cup captain, called Arthur Ashe. And I guess they were on the phone for a couple of hours, and Arthur Ashe was taking copious amounts of notes. Mm-hmm. And then they even called in Bernie Mitten, who beat Connors on grass a few weeks prior. So it was all these guys putting their heads together, right? Because Jimmy Connors was the number 1 player at the time. And Arthur Ashe was one of the few that had the skills to beat him, right? Yeah. And it worked. And I just think that story is just so amazing. I wish I was there to, watch all of them conspire and help Arthur Ashe get a tactic that would win him Wimbledon, and it worked.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm just showing some of the pictures of Mr. Ashe right now for those who aren't familiar. This picture right here. That I'm circling over is probably like one of the more popular photos. The one with him like holding the tennis racket to like the side of his face. But yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's a beautiful photo.
Yeah, and this is his wife as well. I wonder what she's doing and how she's living life. And I think he had some children, right?
They adopted a daughter.
Yeah. This is a picture.
The daughter and his wife are still very active in his foundation.
That's the UCLA one?
The UCLA one, and then the AIDS one as well.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's phenomenal to hear. Yeah, because when I first came upon the UCLA one keeping his legacy alive, I wasn't sure like who was involved, and I was like, did his family sign off on this? Like, who's in charge of this? Because when I went to the website, seemed it was it seemed to be very much geared towards apparel. And I wasn't sure. I was like, is this the right website? Is it a different website? But there were different tabs for you to choose on to like find out more about what they were doing. And I was just, very curious about who was, behind it. So if that is true, that his family is behind that, that's amazing.
I don't quote me on that, but I
Yeah.
thought they were. I know it's that
Yeah.
UCLA legacy. It seems to me like an oral tradition. Like
Hmm.
they want to teach students about Arthur Ashe and not let him just get lost in history,
Yeah.
which he shouldn't be lost in history.
Right.
And so that's what I thought it was. Like it's just an education, and then the apparel probably helps with the funding and also getting his name out there, right?
This is true. This is
And
true.
I believe that this.
I think that's his wife right there.
Yes, I thought that's his wife now.
Yeah, I think that's his wife right there. Kevin Lemon and Jeannie Matsusami Ash at the Arthur Ashe Legacy booth this year. Wow, 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago.
Oh wow!
So
You could have bumped into her.
yeah. Now I don't know if this booth is in New York at the U.S. Open or if it's in UCLA. So maybe you could have bumped into her. But
Yes, I
it's great to know that she's involved and or she's aware of it as well. So and they have some. It seems to be some scholars that they're rearing up as well. Yeah, they have some scholars. Wow.
yeah, it's very
Amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I wanted to just mention, and to be honest with you, I learned this today, but I wanted to just throw this in. I did not know that Arthur Ashe was on 4 winning Davis Cup teams for the
Wow.
United States, and he was very, very passionate and proud about representing the United States in Davis Cup. In fact, he had a rivalry with Jimmy Connors because at that time Jimmy Connors was not playing Davis Cup, and they did not. That was one of the reasons they didn't like each other, because Arthur Ashe called Jimmy Connors unpatriotic,
Hmm.
and Jimmy Connors obviously took offense to that. But they had some like war of words and stuff. But I had no idea that that Arthur Ashe won, besides his Grand Slam wins, which was the Australian Open in 1970, the U.S. Open in 1968, and
Mhm.
Wimbledon in 75 against Connors. Then he's got these 4 Davis Cup wins.
Yeah.
Very
It says he also led the United States to victory for 3 consecutive years, 68 to 70.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Wow.
Crazy. I didn't know that. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about him was, and forgive me if I'm getting the terminology wrong, but he was, if not the first, one of the first Black athletes to go to South Africa.
Hmm.
In 75, he went to the South African Open, and he was the first African American, Black American to play that tournament. He lost in the finals to none other than Jimmy Connors, but it was breaking that barrier in South Africa with him
Wow.
being,
During apartheid and all of that.
yes.
Wow.
So that's these are the reasons why I don't think of him as a tennis hero. He's just an American hero. I mean,
Beautiful.
that just transcends tennis, and I feel privileged that I was his ball girl in 1975 all the way back then.
It's such a blessing with all of what you shared. So to bring things to a close, who do you like? What do you think about today's game? And who are like some of your favorite players?
Well, I want to bring up a Canadian player who reminds me a lot of Arthur Ashe, Felix Auger-Aliassime, and forgive me if I'm butchering that name. I don't know.
No, I think you pronounced it pretty well.
That
was impressive.
To me, he looks like Ashe. He plays like Ashe. his personality is very serene and calm. He's very mature for his age. I think he's only 21. And he's from all I can see, a very class act. I've seen him interviewed. He seems like such a nice, humble guy. And I root for him, and I'm a big fan of his. And he does remind me of Arthur Ashe. I mean, tennis has really changed over the last, let's say 40 years. And the game is very different. There he is. But his coach is Tony Nadal, which is Rafael Nadal's uncle.
Yes, the great.
Yes,
awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh yeah, that's right.
But I love, there's just so many players right now that I do like. I mean, I do love Francis Tiafoe, who got to the semis of the U.S. Open.
Yeah, that's my guy. Big foe.
His story is, just very inspiring. And you can tell how much he loves the game and how much he loves playing. Just by even these photos, you can see, right?
Yeah.
Has energy. So I always root for him. And trying to think on the women's side.
Well, them too. Felix, or some nickname him FAA, and
Right, FAA,
Tiafoe Francis. His nickname is Big Foe. Both of them in the Laver Cup that happened just over about a month ago.
Yeah.
Which was like Roger Federer's farewell retirement tournament. Felix and Francis were like, it was a team effort, but they were the main two players who helped Team World win their first ever Laver Cup over Team Europe for the first time ever. And it was in a very, very dramatic, classic fashion that you all have to bear witness to. So,
yes. Yeah, I forgot about them teaming up together, but yeah, you're right. I mean, we have a lot of great American players. I love Tommy Paul. I'm a fan of his. And then the women.
He was on that team too. I'm listening. I'm sorry.
He's a great player. I mean, all these guys I feel like are steadily improving. And with the women, gosh, we have. I mean,
wait, are you leaving out one of the men? I think you may have mentioned him. You don't have to say his name. He's a younger, ravish personality who's very controversial. We don't have to say his name, but
who am I forgetting?
Well, I mean, you mentioned him on our initial call.
Oh, wait, don't tell me. I can't remember who I said.
His initials are NK.
Oh, Nick Kyrgios.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking of American players, but
got you. Okay.
But no, I mean, Nick Kyrgios has infused a lot of interest in tennis, and he will continue to do so. I mean, he's an amazing talent, and he speaks his mind. I'm a fan of Nick. I really like him. In fact, I posted something about him on Instagram, and he actually, I think it was him. It was his account. It was his official account. He responded with a heart emoji on something I had posted. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. I mean, it might have been somebody, handling his account, but I was excited just to even get that. But I really like him. I'd love to see him win a Grand Slam. And I mean, he's, I'm not a big fan of the tantrums, but, but there's a lot of stress there, and there's a lot of pressure, and he wants to win. And I do understand when they get frustrated. But I think at that level, it would be nicer to see them maybe do it in the locker room, or maybe car or something. I don't know. It's just, but he's still young, and he's, I love him, and I do cheer for him as well. I love Medvedev. I think Medvedev is so funny. I think he just is a crack up. I love his comments and his and his little quips. I think he's very enjoyable to also watch as a player, but I like when he's interviewed, and he's another one that speaks his mind. Really like him a lot. And on the women's side, I do like Simona Halep. She seems like a very nice person. But I also like Kvitova. She's great, and I mean, of course, they're both. I think Venus is retired now, but I mean,
not yet. I think she's on her way, but
she's still playing. I saw. Okay, so I saw Serena and Venus play in person, and I will say that what struck me about Venus. Now I saw her play 20 years ago when she was just getting on the tour. She's very regal.
Yeah.
Venus is super regal. She looks like some sort of princess. She may not look like that in photos, but in person, she is charismatic and just like, you're like, where's her crown? I know that sounds funny. That's what I kept on thinking when I saw her play. And she was maybe, I don't know. She might have been 19 at the time. She was young, but very regal, very majestic in person.
Beautiful.
And who else? Oh, let's see. I'm trying to think. You know who I would like to see do better is Asimova, Amanda Asimova. She's got an amazing game, and she comes out and she'll beat Naomi Osaka. She'll beat other players, and then she'll lose in the next round. So I'd really like her to string some matches together and have her. Now she has gotten to the semis of the French, but that was quite a while ago, and that was her father passed away, and I think that slowed her progression down as a tennis player, and that's understandable. But I do hope that she can get it together, and I think she's got the game to be in the top 5. Absolutely. Maybe even number 1, in my opinion. She's an amazing player, and she's still very young. She got to the semis of the French when she was only 17. And I think she's still only 21. So I have high hopes for her. I'd like to see her win several Grand Slams. I think she's got the game for it. And who else? Yeah, I think that's
nice.
But,
and you're I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's one other young American that I would like to mention. Her name is Robin Montgomery. She's African American. She's a young girl. I think she's 18. She just played Coco Gauff in San Diego, and she's somebody to watch. Now she's another phenom, and the people in the know think that she could be, top 10, top 5, but she's another one to watch, and she's a very pretty girl. So if she got even into the top 20, she'd have amazing, deals. Media deals.
Got you. Awesome.
So very young and somebody. She won the U.S. Open Juniors, I think, a year or two ago.
Awesome.
Watch. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all those. And you're okay with the state of the game, presently.
Well, the only thing that I'm not okay with was Wimbledon not awarding points to the players that played. I thought that was. I mean, who am I? I'm just, an old tennis player, but I thought that was a travesty. Absolutely. I mean, ridiculous. And I feel so badly for the players that did well in 2021.
Yeah.
And who did well in 2022, because they both suffered.
Yeah, messed up the whole like the point system and all of that.
And that's why Novak Djokovic is number 7 in the world, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it affected a lot of players who played and didn't play.
Yes.
Novak being one of them, Nick Kyrgios, Rafael Nadal. It was like like the points are just all out of whack because of that.
all
Yeah.
out of whack. And Novak won the 2021 Wimbledon.
Mm-hmm.
So he lost all of those points.
Yeah.
And even though he won the 22 Wimbledon, it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And that's why. So he won Wimbledon and then dropped in the rankings. How does that even make any sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And Rybakina, who won the women's side of Wimbledon, she was complaining that she didn't even feel like a Wimbledon champion. And I think she's ranked, because she didn't get any points for her win, I think she's ranked like 20th in the world. But if she'd gotten those points, she would have been top 10. And in the running for the end of the year championships.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't make any sense at all. Same with Nick Kyrgios. He didn't get any points for getting to the final. He would also be in the top 10.
Yeah.
And having a chance for the year-end championships. So that was a travesty. Very poor judgment on everyone involved who made that decision. That's my opinion.
Gotcha.
And I also think it's fair that Novak didn't get to play the Australian and didn't get to play the U.S. Open. But,
You said you do or you don't think it's fair?
I do not think it's fair. Yeah. I do not think it's fair at all. At all. Yeah, I think that's also another travesty. But and there are people that think like I do, and there are people that don't think like I do. So
it's an ongoing conversation that has just heated up again, within the previous, few days, in terms of if he's allowed to be and play at the Australian Open that's, coming up in 2023. And so it's ongoing. We'll see. It's a very controversial topic, and it's just a lot to unpack with that particular topic and with what's going on with him. So it's like he's admired and not cared for. It's kind of like, polar, situation, but nonetheless, he's a great player and one of the greatest of all time, top 3 for sure.
I personally think he's the GOAT.
Gotcha.
And I will preface everything I say. I am a big Novak fan, and I will say that him and his wife do a lot for charity.
Beautiful.
It's not in the media, but they are very giving people. So
beautiful. Well, shouts out to Novak. Shouts out to Roger Federer, and shouts out to my guy Rafael Nadal. So we're gonna leave it at that before we get too excited. Yes. But what are you working on these days? Is there anything that you want to share?
I just moved to Florida, and I really like it here. And I'm gonna try to start playing tennis again. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping I can find a women's league, that I can play in. And my game typically comes back in about 2 weeks, because I played for so many years that it's like riding a bicycle. Mm-hmm. And everything comes back. My timing. I mean, obviously I don't move as well as I used to, when I was 20, but I know the game pretty well. So I'm tactically smart, I think. Okay. So I want to start playing again. And I'm starting a new job in a couple of weeks. So all is good in Florida. Didn't get hit by Hurricane Ian. We had some rain and some wind, but nothing too bad. So I was very, very fortunate. Some people in Florida were not that lucky, and they're still trying to recover. So down south of me.
Yeah. Now, what would you like? Well, thank you for sharing that. And yes, what would you like people to take away from, or learn from the game of tennis?
Oh, learn from the game.
Or just like, why is this game so important? Like, why should people care about the sport? Yeah. Why should people watch it, get more familiar with it? Because my intent behind, creating this channel is my love, for the sport. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching it for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And, I feel like I should have, got online 2-3 years ago, when these tennis channels that you and I watch were starting up. Mm-hmm. But better late than never. Yeah. And I just want to express myself. And there's not so many people who look like me come from where I come from who are as passionate about tennis. And so that was my impetus. And I'm trying to share with the world, like, here's why tennis is important. Yes, it is a game and it's a sport, and people think different things about sports, but this game has value. And it's entertaining, and it's amazing. So it has the word love in it. But don't even get me started. But what would you like people to know about the game, take away from it, or why should the world know about tennis?
Well, there's several. My answer, I don't think, is going to be too short. There are many things about tennis that I think are important, and one you've heard before. I mean, it's a very fun game that can get you in very good shape. So it's easy to get in good shape, I think, when you play tennis. And the other thing about tennis is that you can play at any level and you can play at any age, right? And you don't.
My nephew's getting into tennis right now. Yeah.
Oh, how old is he?
He's 5.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. Have him be a ball boy. Will you promise?
Yes.
You have to.
My sister is listening. Listen up.
You have to do that. You can play at any age and any level. And the nice thing about tennis is you don't really need that many tools to play, right? So you can buy, a racket at whatever, Big Five or, a Target, and you don't have to spend too much money. You just have to get a backboard, right? And some tennis balls. And for very little money, you can start playing the game. And that's how I did it. I for the first year, I really maybe only played on a court a couple times. It was me on this backboard getting my strokes down and learning how to be consistent. So then when I did get on the court, I was able to play, and be a decent person, a decent player on the court. The other couple things that I want to say about tennis is that to win your matches, because I did play competitive tennis, to win your matches, you have to have heart. And that is something I think that is very important to learn in real life, because in real life you get a lot of bumps and dumps, and it's kind of a rocky road sometimes, and you have to have heart to keep on going. And tennis will teach you that, right? And the way that the scoring, I think what really, or one of the greatest things about tennis is the scoring. It's not like a baseball game or a football game or a basketball game where it's the highest score wins the game or wins the match or whatever. In tennis, you can actually win more points and lose the match.
This is true.
Okay.
This is very true.
Means that there are key moments. Thank you. Moments in the match that are super important, that you need to convert, that you need to win. And that's what makes it even more of a mental game than I think any other sport. Yes. And that's why it's so intriguing to watch. I've seen matches where a pro will lose the first match 6-0 and then would go on to win the match. And that's because that player had heart and they kept on, struggling through the match and fighting. And when those pros are interviewed after the match, they will say, I kept on fighting. I kept on fighting to the end. I don't know how I won the match, but I did. And that's the thing about tennis. You have to have the fight. You have to have the heart. And I think that's when people retire. So it's not so much about their ages, which does come in play, but it's about they don't have the heart to play anymore because it's so difficult. It's such a grind. I mean, it was a grind for me, and I wasn't a pro. I was just an amateur, right? But I was competing, and it was hard. You needed your heart to do that, and that's why, I don't know Ash Barty's story, but maybe that's why she retired. because
Yeah, I mean it's different. It's different. I think that it's player specific. You know that's the case for her. But then you have somebody like Roger Federer, who he had the heart and he had the will,
oh,
but
yeah,
at some point his body was not able to allow him to do what he
right,
was accustomed to doing on the tennis court. And so it
right.
was like, man, like, it's time to, move on. But your point is well taken as well, though. You got to have the heart to keep on going.
Well,
You
and I
know?
think that that's why Rafael Nadal is so good.
Hmm.
When other pros are interviewed, the players always say that he's the hardest competitor to play because he has the biggest fight in him.
Absolutely.
And that's having a strong heart to battle your matches, because that's
Hmm.
not easy. And
Yeah.
he's doing it for I don't know how long. I think he got on the tour in 2005 when he was like 16.
2004. Yeah. 2004, 2005. Yeah.
Right? And so Novak and Rafa and Roger, and Serena, and
Yes.
Venus, these
Yes.
players are they are
Yes.
extraordinary
Those.
athletes,
Yes.
but then they have the extraordinary fight and this extraordinary heart to play these matches. And
Absolutely.
that's my opinion of those great, icons of the sport. Yeah, so that's why I think it's important. If you have a child that's playing tennis, it will teach them to fight, and it will give them a stronger heart. You have to have heart behind your head.
Aw, that's
So
beautiful.
yeah, and I do that aside from getting you in great shape and having fun. So yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful to hear.
Mhm.
Why uh not even gonna go back. We'll end it with that.
Mhm.
And those were incredible closing words.
Uh,
Is there anything that you want to get out, or do you want to close with that? Because that was a very, very powerful close as well.
No, I think I love tennis. I think it's a great game, and I think it's the greatest game. I think it's the greatest sport.
Mm.
And I will say this. I will close with this. I remember, and this might have been 20, 30 years ago. There was some sort of a not an experiment, but a research study where they studied sports, and they analyzed all the sports, and they said that tennis, out of every single sport on the planet, was the hardest to master. And I
Ooh.
had people disagree with me, but no, it's hands down the hardest sport to master, because you are using your hands, but you've got a racket, okay? And you're moving while you're hitting a ball that's moving. And all the other sports, basketball, football, you're touching the ball. That makes any sense, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that is considered easier than like a racket. In baseball,
And that's not a racket.
no, it's
I'm
and it
listening.
is very difficult. The pitches are coming up, extremely fast, and you've got this tiny bat, but the batter is stationary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they deemed this the hardest sport to master, and I believe that, and I think it's true, and that's why you need to be very brilliant and to be a great tennis player, and you need agility, and you need hand-eye coordination. You need so much. I mean, look at Novak. He can do the splits.
Mm-hmm.
Practices that, like he
Yeah.
literally
Immense arena.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
And Rafa is a whole nother, person, and the athleticism on him is amazing. I did see him play in person once,
Mm-hmm.
and he was young. He was about 18 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he hit with so much spin and so much power. I've
Mm-hmm.
never seen anybody hit like that. I will say that. I've not seen Novak play in person, but to watch Rafa in person was extremely impressive. And then
Beautiful.
the other person, I'll just say this, Agassi. I saw Agassi play in person, and he
Uh-huh.
hit the cleanest ball of anybody.
Mm.
the cleanest ball of anybody. And that's it. Then I'll be quiet.
That is the way to end it. And speaking about my two favorites of all time,
Oh,
Andre Agassi and Rafael Nadal. I
yes.
love it.
Yes.
One of only four men to
Uh-huh.
actually win the Grand Slam, a Grand Slam on each and every single
Yes.
surface. Now, there were men who had won the Grand Slam, Don Budge being one of them, Rod Laver being
Yes.
another one
Yes.
who had won all four Grand Slams. But at that point, either three of them or all of them were played on grass. So
Right.
Andre Agassi was the first one to win
Mhm.
all four Grand Slams, not concurrently, but in his career on a different surface. That is the Australian Open, which is a hard court, the French Open, which is clay,
Mhm.
Wimbledon, which is grass, and then the US Open, which is hard court, a little bit different than the Australian Open. So you got the Aussie, the French, Wimbledon, and the US Open. Andre Agassi did that. Roger Federer has done it. Novak Djokovic has done it, and my guy Rafael Nadal has done it as well. One of
Yes.
only two men to have done it twice. So we'll end with
Oh,
that,
yes.
and we'll say once again, thank you for your contribution to tennis history, tennis herstory,
Yes.
tennis lore, and wishfully this adds a bit more color to the tennis history that we know. When people watch this broadcast, it just gives more context and just these stories that just make the picture more whole. So we thank you very, very much here at Soul Power Tennis for your contribution, and for you being brave enough and cool enough and having so much energy to be able to maintain and be here 2 hours plus. It is so much appreciated, Miss Elissa. So thank
It
you
was
very, very much, and we'll probably speak again.
absolute pleasure to be on here, and it was great for you to kind of push me to jog my memory about all these fun times that I had back in the 70s playing tennis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mr. Ashe will be proud. And bless your heart, bless your family, bless your doggy, and bless you.
Yeah.
And may you enjoy the rest of your evening. And until next time, keep your head in the game. Let's
Thank you
keep on
so much.
winning.
And I wish you and Soul Power Tennis so much success. You totally deserve it. And I love your perspective and your
Mm,
spin on the game. I like it a lot that you're going to focus on African American tennis.
mm,
I don't think there's enough of that.
mm.
And keep going. And I'll be watching your other podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so very much.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Good night. Bye.
Yeah. Ooh, so that was that, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, so thankful for Miss Elissa's contribution. And like I said, it's for the tennis history that we knew, I think it adds more color and more context. And just in general with all those great tennis stories. And we specifically like to acknowledge and honor the contributions of the Black Americans, the foundational Black Americans in particular. And we're going to close with pulling up a picture of Mr. Jimmy McDaniel, because I pulled up a picture of everyone else. And so it's only fair and only fitting that we show this tennis great legend and icon, and give thanks for his contributions to tennis, the game that we love so very, very dearly. So that is Mr. McDaniels right there. You can see him. Let's try to make this a little bigger if we can. But yeah, this is that's him. That's the man himself, ranging somewhere between 6'2" and 6'5" in height. But the man is bigger than his body is. And just by looking at him, he just seems to be Such a warm, kind, powerful spirit. Um, so yeah, let me just see if I can find some more images. There we go. Handsome guy, handsome man, beautiful black founded. Whoa, is that a picture of him and Althea Gibson? Whoa, there we go. We cannot end this tennis broadcast without mentioning we're speaking about Arthur Ashe and what he did, and he is the man version, the male version, in a sense, in essence, of Miss Althea Gibson, who has a statue up at the tennis courts in my hometown of Newark, New Jersey, at Branchbrook Park. So I love her so much, and I'm excited to present her story to this particular broadcast. And yeah, it's going to be beautiful. So this is a picture of Althea Gibson and Mr. Jimmy McDaniel. Wow. Amazing. Amazing, amazing. And we're going to close with a picture of star of the show. You know how it goes. And let me see if I can get a picture of him holding the US Open trophy. How about that? There we go. That's a beautiful one. That's a beauty. That's a beaut. The US Open trophy. Amazing. I don't want to get any copyright issues, so I'll just leave it at that. So I'm not going to play any video or anything. But that is the man, not the myth, but definitely the legend himself, Arthur Ashe, and who was a major inspiration for this particular platform and this broadcast. So that's him holding the Wimbledon trophy. Try to see if I can share that. Let me do this real quick as we begin to make our way out. And again, please make sure you like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and share this broadcast with as many people as you can, especially those who are interested in the game of tennis, the sport of tennis itself. It will be greatly appreciated, because we have a goal of getting to either this or my other channel, getting to 1,000 subscribers by year's end. And so my aim is to make a video on, if I can do both channels every day until January 1st of 2023, that would be amazing. But I'm at least going to be doing a video every single day. And yeah, stick with me, stay with me. It's going to be an honor. It's going to be fun. It's going to be enjoyable. And yeah, I look forward to it. So I'm going to do my part. Make sure you do your part. And with that, we're going to, and I want to thank you to those who were in the live chat. A very, very special person who was, making so many awesome comments, and I'll highlight that again. And we will go out in a similar way that we came in. So this has been Akmo Sari with Soul Power Tennis, and thank you all for joining. Much appreciated. And, as we always say, stay tuned and stay in tune. So, until next time.